All right, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Birds on the Farm, and we've got a loaded show today. We've got international signings to talk about. We've got top 100 prospect lists that just dropped from multiple outlets, and then we might be predicting some breakouts for next year. Who knows? We'll have all of that ahead on the show today. So, some of the big news coming out again, loaded show here. Baseball America and MLB Pipeline just updated their top 100 prospect lists. And the Cardinals landed pretty favorably on both of these. Both lists obviously are very high on JJ Weatherholt. That's kind of an industry consensus at this point. But the Cardinals had 4 prospects land in the top 60 on Baseball America. And then, I don't know, like 5 or 6 others receive votes to finish in the top 150 there. And then 5 guys land on MLB Pipeline's top 100. So you could say, according to these lists, this is as strong as the Cardinals farm has looked in quite a minute. So, Kareem, let's jump straight to you and then to farm hands. What was your reaction when you saw these lists? Was this kind of what you expected? Were there any snubs? And then is there anybody you think that, I don't know, a little underrated, a little overrated? Let us know.
I don't think there was a surprise. JJ Weatherholt, Liam Doyle, and Reinal Rodriguez were all within, the top 50 prospects for both Baseball America and MLB Pipeline. But Joshua Baez jumping in there, I wouldn't say it was, necessarily, that surprising, but it's good to see him getting some love from these, outlets. As Cardinals fans, we're all aware of the breakout that Joshua Baez had, and I personally believed he was a top 100 prospect in the league after the season that he had, the 2025 season. But to see MLB Pipeline and Baseball America have him inside the top 100, it's just reassuring to the breakout that he had. And, this is a legit prospect in the game. It's not just us Cardinals people, talking about Baez. He's a legit prospect in Major League Baseball now, and that's awesome to see. I think it's well-deserved. And, to have a guy that wasn't even inside the top 30, prospects for Baseball America and MLB Pipeline in the Cardinals organization, jumping into the top 100 in the whole sport. I mean, that's tremendous. Can't talk about, it's just amazing seeing a guy having that sort of ascent, right? And, it goes to show you the kind of work that he put in when he was placed over on the development list in 2024, reworking that swing. And at the end of that 2024 season, he was tremendous with Palm Beach, and he just carried that into 2025, where he had a legitimate breakout season. Over 20 home runs, over 50 stolen bases, rocket of an arm that's going to work well in right field. It's just the kind of player that, it can impact the game in so many different ways. And it's cool to see the Cardinals organization have another position player prospect that we can look at as, a potential difference maker, in the immediate future. I mean, this guy's going to be in AAA. He's going to be on the doorstep of the big leagues. And the Cardinals organization, I think, in terms of position player prospects right now, I wouldn't say they're in the best spot, but to have a guy like Joshua Baez break out and, have another name aside from just JJ Weatherholt to look at, I mean, that's awesome. And, I'm really excited to see what he's capable of, in AAA. The exit velocities are going to be, fun to look at.
Charts.
Being able to have access to that data in AAA, it's going to be fun. Just posting about 114, 115 mile an hour home runs from Joshua Baez every week.
He's such a beast.
Really looking forward to that. And once he gets over to the major leagues, to have a guy like this that has so many tools that, the Cardinals are searching for production in the outfield. Jordan Walker hasn't lived up to the hype. Victor Scott, I know he's a hell of a defender in center field, but the way he ended the season offensively, it wasn't particularly great. And then you look at Lars Nootbaar, always hurt. And he's someone that's in trade discussions. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he's traded at the deadline. So for an organization that's trying to find some outfield production, I think Joshua Baez could provide that, and really looking forward to this 2026 season for him.
Absolutely. Yeah. Farmhands. What were some of your reactions when you saw this stuff drop?
I think we all kind of expected JJ to be kind of in that 3 to 5 range. And then same with Rainiel and Liam Doyle. We kind of expected him to be somewhere in the 30s. So you really got to look at the other two that made list in Joshua Baez and Leonardo Bernal. I was a little surprised. I'll just tap here on Leonardo Bernal. I was a little surprised that he made the MLB pipeline list at 98. That's kind of where you expected him to be. If he was going to make a list, it was going to be right there at the back end. But I was a little shocked after the down second half that he made the list. Joshua Baez was the one that was very interesting. Like Kareem said, I was surprised the two lists how different they were with the rankings. Obviously, Pipeline had him at 87. Baseball America had him at 54. I thought he was going to kind of fall in that 60 to 70 range. I thought it was going to be somewhere in between. So I was really interested in that. But like Kareem said, having a breakout guy like Baez that has all 5 tools, we haven't seen that in a while for the Cardinal system. A breakout guy that has pretty much every single tool in the bag and can become, this elite prospect, this elite player if he hits his ceiling for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to take a second to appreciate what this meant for Josh Baez too. This is a guy that was drafted in the second round way back in 2021. So he was entering this will be his 6th minor league year with the organization, 5 full seasons, and then that abbreviated season after the draft. And it's a guy that has really struggled to figure it out until now. You look at some of the numbers. I mean, he's had a ton of trouble controlling strikeouts, whether you're talking about the 2024 season where it just kind of felt like he was starting to play himself out of the Cardinals' plans. He struck out 114 times in only 320 plate appearances. And you see him bounce back last year where he strikes out less and plays 31 more games. In addition, he taps into some of that in-game power finally. It was just awesome to see. To think about how far he was able to advance himself in a year where it's like this guy hasn't figured out advanced. They're sending him back down to A-ball in his 4th full season in the minor leagues. Like, that's concerning. And then you see him all of a sudden this year, we're talking about him potentially starting off in AAA, being on the doorstep of the big leagues. Like, that is an unbelievable rise. So just really, really happy for him. That's awesome. To see a guy play himself back into an organization's plans, put himself firmly back on the big league club's radar. That's a really awesome story. So I think that's like the big story of last season.
One last thing I want to mention about Joshua Baez. Last year at high A, he had a 63% contact rate. This year at the same level, 73.2%. So over 10 percentage points increasing. And when he went over to Double A, he just got better and better, 77.4%. So he's whiffing like 22.6% of the time. And for a guy that has the kind of power that he has, I think he hit a 115 mile an hour home run for Double A. I mean, that's just awesome to watch. And yeah, the 77.4% contact rate, by the way, that's a higher mark than JJ Weatherholt had at AAA. 76.5%. Just put into perspective a little bit. And, I'm not here to say that Joshua Baez is going to continue that trend up and have higher contact rates in AAA, but we saw him get more comfortable as the year went on in terms of making contact. And this guy went for someone that was maybe a 30 hit tool to a guy that has a really good hit tool. And, he's going to hit for a high average, makes a lot of contact. That's just awesome when you bundle that with all the other tools that he has.
Yeah, he totally fixed his biggest weakness. I mean, again, this is a guy that in his 4th season was OPSing under 700 in A-ball. Like, that's a crazy jump to go from that to consensus top 100 prospect is just so exciting. So couldn't be happier for him. Some of the other guys that were close and missed, I think it's worth touching on here. So Quinn Matthews, I know, was a consensus top 100 prospect, kind of a down year. Brandon Clark, new to the organization. Jimmy Crooks made his MLB debut last year. Leo Bernal, who did make the pipeline list, but was, received votes for Baseball America. And then Tanner Franklin, another draftee, seems like kind of a polarizing player. I know some outlets list him outside the Cardinals' top 20, like Fangraphs, but some are very high on him, and the tools are exciting. So is there any name in that group that sticks out to you as a guy that maybe could join this list next year?
I think Brandon Clark is the immediate name that jumps off to me. 97 mile an hour fastball from the left side up to the triple digits. I think his slider is already the best breaking ball in the Cardinals organization. And when you have that, a lefty that, can touch triple digits, has an elite slider. I mean, what is there not to like with a Brandon Clark? It's just going to be about, staying healthy, showing that he's capable of starting, throwing at least, 5-6 innings. And if he shows that in 2026, he is without a doubt going to be a top 100 prospect. So I think he's one name that stands out to me that I could see jumping into the top 100 for Baseball America and MLB Pipeline in 2026 if he has a great season. Jimmy Crooks, obviously saw him at the major league level this year. I don't know what the Cardinals are going to do with the catching situation with Ivan Herrera being prepped to start at catcher for them, also having Pedro Paez. Is Jimmy Crooks going to be back at AAA? I'm not sure. I don't know how much time he's going to get at the major leagues, assuming Herrera is showing that he's capable of catching, and Pedro Paez continues to do what he's been doing over the past couple of years for the Cardinals. But I think all these guys, Quinn Matthews, Brandon Clark, Jimmy Crooks, Bernal, I think they're either top 150, top 200. I think they're close to being top 100 prospects, and we're just missed Baseball America's list. And in MLB Pipeline's case, Bernal actually cracked the list at 98. Franklin, as you said, I think a little bit more polarizing. I'd like to see him, show that he's capable of starting first. Was a reliever in college.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of his secondaries aren't fully developed. He has a 1-year sample size of throwing strikes. I love Tanner Franklin as much as anyone. I think he's got unbelievable arm talent, but I want to see him show it, in the minor leagues first before I'm going to have him as a top 100 or a guy that just missed the top 100, right? But he has all the talent in the world, and it would not surprise me one bit if he's on a top 100 list in the future. But I just want to see him produce a little bit more before, I'm making that decision, right? I think he has all the talent in the world, but can he start? I think that's still a question. Is the strike throwing not at the level that it should be? Because prior to his 2025 season at Tennessee,
walked the house at Kennesaw State.
State couldn't throw a strike, right?
He walked the house.
Yeah, he made some mechanical tweaks. He got to a competent level in terms of throwing strikes at Tennessee, but is that what we should be accustomed to, or is this a guy that is going to have some strike throwing inconsistencies? So, love Tanner Franklin, but I think he's the one name out of that group where I'm not sure if he's quite a top 100 or just missed kind of prospect. I think he's a little bit off, but at the same time, you could see why some people are so bullish on him with the kind of arm talent that he has.
It's crazy to say that Liam Doyle is in your system and he might not have the best fastball in your system. He probably does, but Tanner Franklin is could be that guy. He needs to find a third pitch, though. So, you're right. Definitely not developed to the point where I think he could join a list like that in the near future. But there's all the talent in the world, like you said. And if he suddenly comes out this year and has that third pitch, is showing an ability to pitch into the 5th or 6th inning of some of these games and limits the walks, that's a fast riser. Anything you're thinking about here, farmhands, headed into this season?
You'd hope on those people that just missed, you'd hope Quinn Matthews and Jimmy Crooks are graduated by the time we talk about this next year. But I think Clark's obviously the name that you look at as that guy's pretty close. And if he just shows it again in a bigger sample size, he's going to be there. If he shows 60 Ks in 38 innings at a 100 inning sample size, or even if he gets up to an 80, 90 inning sample size, he probably makes a top 100 list. Franklin obviously needs more development, but if he shows durability that he can actually start and the command's there, I think he'll be pretty close. He might be just off a list. He might need to show it for a second year, but I'll be interested. I think Brandon Clark's definitely that name they look at this guy could be a top 75, top 50 prospect next year if everything goes right.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any other names that weren't mentioned here that you guys want to touch on? Because I know there are some guys that had big seasons in the Cardinals system that haven't really gotten the recognition they deserved. Kareem, does anyone come to mind?
Yeah, I think there are a few guys. Yairo Padilla.
Yeah,
I
great
think,
name.
entering the 2025 season, he had some of the most buzz out of any Cardinals prospect. And he showed some promising signs in the Florida Complex League. Power is still something that you'd like to see tick up a little bit, but he's a young kid, still maturing. But you talk about a guy that's got the tools, right? Very athletic. As long as he's, a little bit more consistent defensively, this is a guy that's going to stick at shortstop, has the arm strength, the actions to play there, steals a ton of bags, switch hitter. Like, I think he has a lot of the just raw tools that you look for. But it's going to be about, developing and just a little bit more consistency. With him, Ryan Mitchell, the Cardinals' second round pick, also jumps off to me in a similar way to a Padilla, as a guy that, is young, has the tools, but has some maturing to do. So it'll be fun to watch him make a debut in the Cardinal system. Didn't play at the end of the 2025 season, but I would imagine he's we'll see him a little bit, whether we might see him in A ball, but if not, complex league for sure. And then we'll talk about this guy a little bit more in the following segment, but Emmanuel Luna, he was the Cardinals' prized possession in, this year's international signing class. And kid's got all the talent in the world, 5-tool player, very physical, 6'2" build, has a ton of power, has already hit balls over 110 miles an hour as a 16-year-old. He turned 17 on his signing day, which was pretty cool. But yeah, he's someone that, the Cardinals are very excited about. And I think he's one of the guys I'm going to be watching in 2026 to see how he performs in the Dominican Summer League. And, if he's producing at that level, I'm going to be very excited heading into 2027, seeing him stateside like Rainiel Rodriguez in 2025, and just continuing to hit the up arrow and potentially being a top 100 prospect. So, I mean, those are a few guys that stand out to me.
Yeah. Before we shift gears and talk about some of these international signings from this year, and I'm so glad we have Farmhands on to join us because he's got his ear to the ground and he's got a lot of great stuff to say about this stuff. Is there anybody that sticks out to you, Farmhands, that we didn't mention yet or anything like that?
Braden Davis, if he can find some command and continue the strikeouts, I think it's going to be hard for guys to leave him off the list if he strikes out guys like he did this past year and finds, just a 5% cut in the walk rate or whatever. He's going to be a ridiculous pitcher if that happens. Daniil Ortiz is another one. He had a ridiculous year between Palm Beach and Peoria. And if he can cut down, the whiff rate a little bit and be a little bit more consistent on the defensive side, I think he can definitely be a top 100 guy. There's some guys coming over from the DSL to stateside that if they have a Rainiel Rodriguez type of run in the complex and make it up to Palm Beach. Sebastian Dos Santos, Miguel Hernandez, a few names there that, maybe can rise quick if they figure out the complex fast. So there's a few names to watch. It's going to be an interesting year to watch the farm system for sure.
Yeah, Sebastian Dos Santos will play this whole season at age 18. He's still 17, which is crazy after, one dotting in the DSL last year. So that's definitely a name to watch. Yeah, the Cardinals, like lower levels, have more fun, I think, like high volatility, but high ceiling names than they've had in a while. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch some of these guys come stateside, see what they do. Man, it's going to be great. Can't wait to get our hands on some data too. Okay, so we mentioned Emmanuel Luna. The Cardinals have just brought in their international signing class a couple of weeks ago. And there are a number of really exciting names here. So Farmhands, I'd love for you to just lead us through some of this. There's a lot of guys and, we're going to talk through, break it down for everybody. But I think it's fair to say that this is one of the more exciting classes they've had on the international front in terms of like high value names, highly ranked names in a while. So let's start with Emmanuel Luna and then let's work our way through.
Yeah, I mean, you have to start with the $2.3 million man who is
awesome.
I think he's the second most paid Cardinals international signee behind Machado, who was back in 2016. So it's been a while since the Cardinals had someone of this money investment. He's obviously, just turned 17. He's a big power speed guy. I mean, I have a video over on my Twitter. Go check it out. You can hear it off the bat. Like it's 110, and like you can just hear like the whoosh on the bat when he hits the ball. It's crazy. He's going to get every chance to stick in center field. I think he's, from the reports I've read from people I've talked to, he's got the athleticism to definitely stick in center, maybe steal some bases, but the power is going to be the calling card. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy hits, 6, 7, 8 home runs in the DSL, which is, that's a good count. When you get up to that count, you're like getting into some real power numbers. So I'll be interested to watch him. I think, that's definitely the guy you're going to have the most eyes on, or people are going to be most following, throughout the season.
Yeah, for sure. Kareem, is there anything that we're missing from this profile? I mean, the tools are just off the charts.
Yeah. I think, first thing that jumps off to me is the $2.3 million. He's definitely seen as the prize possession in the class by the Cardinals when they're, paying him that amount of money. I mean, the next guy in terms of bonus pool that they signed was Carlos Carrion at 1.1 million. So, I mean, Luna has more than double that, right? With 2.3 million. So yeah, excited to add a guy that's already hit balls over 110 miles an hour when he was just 16 years old, 17 now, has a lot of tools, potential 5-tool guy. I think, out of this class, he's clearly the top guy. And I'm most excited to see how he fares in the Dominican Summer League out of all these names.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, is he the hot? So like, I know different outlets ranked him in the top 10 of this international class. Is that the most highly touted international prospect the Cardinals have signed in the last 5 years? I can't really think of anybody else that was ranked that high.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure if I did my research right, I think he's the only one that's been in the top 10 that the Cardinals have signed in the last 5 years. I can't exactly remember where Jonathan Machado was all the way back in 2016. But definitely in the past 5 years. I don't know where Jonathan Mejia was. He might have been in the teens, but we haven't had anybody not nearly close to top 10. I don't believe in, since 2020.
Yeah, and it's definitely hard to know what's going to happen with these guys like Jonathan Mejia. That's a name. Jonathan Machado. Like, man, you see some of these guys come stateside and they have trouble adjusting and fizzle out. But Emmanuel Luna is the type of top-end talent that you've seen other teams mine from the international market. And it's nice to see the Cardinals jump in on that, man. I know they've done the whole thing where it's quantity over quality. You throw money at a bunch of different names, and you might end up with a Reinel Rodriguez. But you also might end up with a bunch of guys that don't go anywhere. And so it's nice to see them throw some more eggs in one basket, consolidate a little bit, and go land a top name. Also, before the show, I thought this was really interesting, Farmhands. You were talking to us a little bit about what the pre-signing process looks like, how agreements are formed. So it's very likely, right, that the Cardinals had an agreement with Emmanuel Luna far before signing day. Like, is there anything you could share? I think that's super interesting.
These kids are getting signed at 12, 13 years old.
Crazy.
Sebastian Rojas, another name that we'll probably talk about later, or maybe touch on. I know he's had an agreement with the Cardinals. He's one of the more public ones with the agreement since, October, August, sometime in 2023, back when he was 12 or 13 years old. So you're looking at these kids, getting this money, or not getting the money, but, getting this promise of money, back when they're 12 and 13 to help their families. And it's just a crazy process that, there's a lot of ins and outs to it, and a lot of, stuff that some people don't exactly like because it's a little mucky, but it's how it is. And it's an interesting process for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy that these teams are looking for talent, 12, 13-year-old kids. That's insane. But as we move to the next name here, another huge name, another guy that got, 7 digits. What can you tell us about Carlos Carrion?
He's a $1.1 million guy, which is interesting. I think I was also trying to research. I couldn't quite find this, but this might be like the first time the Cardinals have signed $2 million+ players in a while.
Yeah.
Carrion is more of a guy that you're betting on the you're betting on the talent, right? You're betting on the athleticism. He's ultra athletic. He's going to probably stick at shortstop if they want to stay him there. I mean, he can play some center field probably if they want to convert him there. The actions are a little clunky, both at shortstop and in the hitting. He's a switch hitter, more proficient from the left side, even though he originally started from the right side. So that's interesting. Natural righty, that's actually better with the left-handed bat. But he's athletic. He got a lot of comparisons to the Mariners' Felnin Celestine, who is their number 8 prospect and is now a 50 grade in their system. So he's got the tools, he's got the athleticism to really be something special. It's just, how does he develop? That's really the big question with Carrion.
All these guys are high variance players, obviously being 16, 17 years old, but it seems like Carrion might be the highest variance guy in the whole class for the Cardinals, when we're talking about a guy that might be the most athletic player, not just for the Cardinals in their class, but the whole entire international class. So it'll be exciting to watch him develop. I mean, if he's able to stick at shortstop, provide plus defense there, I mean, that's an avenue where he could potentially be an impactful player, even if the hitting doesn't fully come around. But seems to be a guy that, again, much like a Luna, has all the talent in the world, very, very athletic. But there's obviously going to be variance, right, in a player that's just so young. I mean, all these guys are, but it seems like Carrion especially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't envy the job of talent evaluators, because it's like everybody we're dealing with here is super toolsy, super athletic, super projectable, and super young. So it's crazy that people are able to like spot this talent so early on. It's insane that all of these big names form these pre-agreements so early on. But before we get to the rest of this list, I just wanted to share a message from our presenting sponsor here, and that's 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're located at 9640 on Olive Boulevard in Olivet, Missouri. They're open 10 to 6 Monday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturday and Sunday. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards, Pokemon cards, whatever you're looking for, they've got it, including the newest selection of packs, boxes, and single cards of both local players and stars from around the league. So whether you're Andrew, over on Dealing the Cards, and you're looking for that Eric Fetty one of one, you might be able to find it there. Or you're betting on some of this young talent. You're waiting for some of these prospect cards to drop. I know JJ Weatherholt cards are in very high demand right now. They're very difficult to find. They're very easy to move. So go check out 314. It's a great place to go spend an afternoon. Everyone in there is very knowledgeable. And if you're like me, you're a card collecting amateur, they can help you get that off the ground. So I've had some fun learning a little bit about the trade and figuring it out. Okay, so back to this list here. We've got a couple more names to go through, and then we're going to have a little fun grab bag at the end where we talk about what we want to see the Cardinals do for the rest of this offseason. It's been a weird one so far, but there's definitely more to come. So we're moving on here to the top pitcher the Cardinals signed. Farmhands, what can you tell us about Rafael Moronta?
One more note on Carrion before I go to Moronta here, but Carrion was stolen from the not stolen. He was signed away from the Padres, and if you know anything about how the Padres do their international classes, they're very talented at their scouting on that side. So if you want any hope for Carrion, he was stolen from the Padres, and the Padres are really good on the international side. Now on to Moronta. He's actually got a lot of experience stateside. That's one of the things that I found really interesting about him. He trained a lot in Kissimmee, Florida, and played in a lot of PG tournaments, at Roger Dean, at those stadiums around there. And, he was in the 14 and 16U age brackets before he had to go back down to the Dominican Republic. But he sits in the low 90s right now from like a 6'4". Perfect Game has him at 6'6". I've looked at some pictures. He does not look quite 6'6". I'd say he's more close to that 6'4". But he's a wiry frame. He's like 150 from that 6'4". So not a very bulky guy yet. And there's obviously a lot of projection there when it comes to adding on mass and adding on velocity. But apparently from what I've seen, he can spin the ball really well. I've seen from different outlets that it's up to 2,500 RPMs on the fastball, which is pretty solid for a guy his age. There's also a slider and a changeup in there. We'll see how he does. The fact that he's already been stateside for a while makes me a little bit more confident. If he ends up coming stateside in the coming years, he won't have as big of a learning curve as, some of the guys who have spent their whole life in the Dominican or in Venezuela. So I'm interested to watch him for sure. And I think he'll have a less steep learning curve if he ends up coming stateside.
Sweet. Anything stick out to you on this profile, Kareem?
I think he's a guy that, obviously just being 16 years old, he'll be 16 pretty much the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
And when you just look at his frame, I mean, this is a guy that can add some bulk and sits in the low 90s right now, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's sitting in the mid 90s once he's, fully, maxed out physically. And yeah, other than that, I mean, seems to be, athletic on the mound. I like his delivery, seems to be pretty athletic. We'll see if he's able to consistently throw strikes in the pros, but just from a body type perspective, him being able to spin the ball as well. I mean, he's got the clay to potentially be an impact pitcher, and it's going to be about the development staff getting the most out of him. And yeah, I mean, he's going to be fun to watch grow and develop. Yeah, seems to be, out of all the Cardinals international signings, the top pitcher. So yeah, I'll definitely be watching him closely.
Yeah, it's important to know too, when we're talking about a 16-year-old international signee who's going to play half this season at age 16, that's a 10th grader, So this guy would be at least a year and a half away from being drafted. So when you think about that kind of value, right, it's a guy that's could potentially be playing stateside by the time he's draft class age. That's just a crazy thing to think about. But I think, you look at these kind of tools, this kind of projectability, and this is a guy that would get draft consideration in a couple of years with this kind of frame, this kind of stuff. So again, very exciting and very far away from the big leagues. Have to emphasize that. Like, don't have crazy expectations for super young players like this, because sometimes you get Jonathan Mejias and sometimes you get Hulks. So it's a little bit everything. It's kind of a grab bag. But we can move on to these last few names here. Farmhands, tell us a little bit about Sebastian Rojas.
He's a catcher out of Venezuela, as I mentioned earlier. Pre-agreement since late 2023. Unfortunately, when they have a pre-agreement, that makes it really hard to find video or much info on him, because some of these academies, once a guy reaches a pre-agreement, they stop posting them. Because that's all these academies are really doing, is they're marketing their players, right? So when a guy goes off the market, there's obviously going to be a lack of video, lack of information on him. But he does look to be, from the few videos that I got that are not from his academy, he looks to be a really athletic catcher that, is a decent receiver with a really strong arm. So the catching seems to be the calling card, and Baseball America on their report kind of confirmed my observation of him being a more catcher over, hitting profile. But on the hitting side, he does seem to be more of a contact driven guy over power. So we'll see how the hitting develops, but the catching is going to be the calling card for Sebastian Rojas.
Yeah, for sure. Kareem, is there anything that sticks out to you? I mean, there's so little information on some of these guys in the class too.
Yeah, it's no surprise the Cardinals are adding a defense first catcher. I mean, they love these kind of players. I mean, throughout the whole system, the Cardinals definitely love catchers that know how to play defense. And Rojas is still very young, but for him to have those actions already, having polished catch and throw skills, receives the ball well, it's not a surprise to me the Cardinals are going after someone like this. And we'll see how he develops offensively. It seems like he has a lot of growing to get to where he needs to be, but seems to be a solid bat to ball guy, right-handed hitter. But yeah, again, no surprise that they're adding a defensive oriented catcher.
Yeah, for sure. And then one more player we're going to discuss today, an outfielder, big frame. What can you tell us about? And I don't want to butcher this name, so Farmhands, I think you might be more qualified than me here.
I'm assuming you're talking about John Frangentin, who is the
John Frangentin. Okay, there we go.
Who is an outfielder from the Dominican Republic. He's very lengthy. First initial look when I looked at him, it's like, yeah, this guy's kind of got that L.A. De La Cruz, O'Neal Cruz type of, lengthy arms, lengthy legs, big power, some swing and miss concern, even though scouts, how much can you take from plate discipline from scouts, when you're facing other 15-year-olds of Dominican Republic, but they claim he's got pretty good plate discipline with a little bit of swing and miss there. He's going to play the outfield. He's probably more of a corner guy than a center field type, but there's tools there, and there's obviously the frame. The frame is the first thing you look at with him as somebody that's like, yeah, if you put some more muscle on there, maybe if he grows another inch, he is the youngest player in the Cardinals class and one of the youngest players, in the whole international class. He was born on August 25th. So that puts him. So the way the international class works is if you have to turn 17 by September 1st. So he was 5 or 6 days away from being ineligible for this class and being a 2027.
Wow.
So he's gonna be 16 pretty much, I think, literally the whole DSL season. So there's still some room to grow there physically and obviously add on weight to become something really special if everything breaks right.
That's crazy, man. If you're looking for an interesting research rabbit hole, like check out some of these international baseball academies and just like read up and look at it. I was doing that the other day, and it is fascinating how some of this works. So, is there anything that sticks out to you here, Kareem?
It's just the physicality that this guy has at such a young age. I mean, just being 16 years old, the power jumps off. I think this is a guy that's at least got the frame and the physicality to be a power guy. It doesn't seem like he has the sort of the kind of athleticism that like a Luna has, for instance, or a Carrion. Seems to be destined to play a corner outfield, and with that, I think there's less avenues for a guy like this to really contribute at the next level if he's going to be, limited to a corner outfield. Doesn't have that sort of athleticism, but the power jumps off. I think out of this whole class, I mean, right behind Aluna, I think you're talking about the power with a guy like Frangenton, and excited to see, how he's able to produce in the minor leagues, in the Dominican Summer League, this year in 2026 is one of the younger players at that level, I would imagine. So, yeah, he's just another guy in this class that, I'm excited about. Yeah, well, we'll see how this whole class performs. I mean, I tend to be more of a pessimist when it comes to international prospects. I'm not going to get too hyped until they're showing it stateside, like, Reynel Rodriguez did in 2025. But these guys certainly have a lot of talent, and just excited to see how they're going to perform in the minor leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. I was spending some time checking out like Juan Soto's baseball reference page recently because I just wanted to see what this journey from, young international signee to the big leagues can look like in that kind of scenario. This is crazy. He went from being signed at these guys' age, 16, 17 years old, basically played like less than 100 games in the minor leagues, and then immediately banged at the big league level at age like 19. That's so ridiculous. Oh man. Obviously the Cardinals don't put expectations on these kind of guys. There probably won't be anything like that happens, almost certainly, but these are good names to know. And they're going to be really fun names to follow in the Dominican Summer League next year. Maybe some of them come stateside, but we'll definitely be talking about the majority of this class being stateside 2 years from now. So it'll be very exciting, very fun to talk through. As we wrap up the show here today, I think this is kind of a fun topic here. We can talk about what we want to see the Cardinals do the rest of this offseason. It's been a weird one so far for Cardinals fans. I don't think we've ever seen the Cardinals kind of strip this team for parts. They've eaten a lot of money, which is, pretty uncharacteristic of the old regime. So it's been nice to see them take on, whether it's a lot of money from the Nolan Arenado deal, just to get a deal done, get it moved, or taking on money in the Gray or Contreras deals to upgrade that prospect return. That's how you end up with a guy like Brandon Clark. It requires you to eat some cash sometimes if you're going to move kind of an albatross contract. So what do you guys think here? The big news is going to be whatever happens with Brendan Donovan. But there are other things. There's Jojo Romero. That saga could get going again in the near future. So let's start with Kareem here. What do you think the Cardinals should do the rest of the offseason? If you're making decisions, knowing what the farm system looks like now, what kind of decisions are you making?
I'm still trying to get a Brandon Donovan trade done. I know a lot of people are with the mindset that, if the Cardinals aren't getting the trade that they desire, just wait until the deadline. And while I do think the Cardinals should be able to get a good, trade even at the deadline, I think for just having clarity that Donovan's not on the roster in 2026, I think that'd be good. And I'd be shocked if teams aren't offering enough to get a deal done. I think the Cardinals might be a little bit, stingy in terms of what they want back right now, which it's understandable given that Brendan Donovan's a great player and you don't want to just move on from him. But at the same time, I think a trade has to get done. And, I know this isn't, a popular take within, the Cardinals fandom. A lot of people want to keep Brendan Donovan, but I just don't think an extension seems likely at this point. And I would just get a deal done now if possible. If teams are offering, at least a 50 FE prospect, I think, that's something the Cardinals should consider. If not, I don't think it's the end of the world to wait until the deadline and move him there. But I wish there was a little bit more of a sense of urgency to move him right now. So I think that's the first thing that jumps off to me, trying to figure out how to maximize a Brendan Donovan and, get a trade done in the next couple months or before the regular season starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Farmhands, how do you feel about a potential Donovan trade?
I think you have to look at it really hard and be like, I think the Cardinals might have to concede a little bit. Maybe they're looking for that 55 and they'll end up with a 50. But it all comes down to what do they value and what do they want, and if you don't get that, then what's the plan, right? Because you could move Donovan at the deadline, but then how does the labor stoppage next year, how does that affect his value at that point? Do teams value him as a 2-year guy? Do they value him as a rental? And as that situation gets clearer as you get closer to the deadline, that could really shift his value if teams only think they're getting him as a rental for 3 months or whatever instead of a year and a half. So maybe they try to trade him now to try to avoid that situation from happening. But I think they will get a deal done. I think there's still been a lot of rumors out there of teams still looking interested. The Giants, the Mariners, the Boston Red Sox are still looking for maybe a second baseman or a third baseman. So I think there's definitely deals to be had out there for Donovan. Besides that, I think they'll look for a right-handed bat, especially if they do end up trading Brendan Donovan. Miguel Andujar, Austin Hayes, a few names that have been rumored to the Cardinals here in recent weeks. So I think those are probably your two main things to get done, on the baseball side, and then obviously figuring out the TV situations, another whole deal that the Cardinals have to figure out here in the coming weeks. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out and how much money we'll have in revenue, because that's super important for not only this year but years to come.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think something interesting with the Donovan market, and I haven't seen stuff from the team about this or anything like that, but it feels like the conversation has shifted a little bit towards well, if they can't trade him, maybe they can extend him. And I don't know how you guys would feel about a Donovan extension. I personally think there's some value there. It'd be really nice to have a clubhouse presence like Donovan as some of these young players come up. I don't think Brendan Donovan severely limits what you can do on your roster. I don't think it's like a Nolan Arenado situation where it feels like you either play him at third base or you don't play him at all, and you're paying him all this money and you have to play him. I think Donovan, with the versatility, the ability to play second, third, outfield. I mean, you probably could play him at first base. I don't think that makes any sense with the Alec Burleson, Ivan Herrera situation still. But I don't think he constricts you the way he necessarily another guy might. And I think it's just, again, I think it's the type of leadership that a team like this could use. Obviously, you don't want to overpay for a guy like Donovan. You don't want to hand him, $25 million a year. And I don't think that's within the range of outcomes. But where would you guys potentially be on a Donovan extension?
I'd be supportive of it. But I just don't think it's a likely thing to happen based on just, reading the tea leaves. I don't think Donovan is going to get extended by the Cardinals. It seems like it's inevitable that he's going to be traded, whether it's now or at the deadline. I think the Cardinals are going to get a trade done. But if they did end up extending him, I would be a fan of it as long as, the contract is a reasonable price. But yeah, I think it's inevitable that he's going to be moved. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I've heard more buzz about an extension lately, but that's also probably a lot of fans. It's probably not a lot of voices that have anything really to say. Farmhands, would you be interested in something like that, or do you think again it's just he's going to be traded?
I'd be interested for sure. I actually put out a tweet, I think it was last night, that was like, if if the Cardinals don't trade Donovan, that signals to me that they value Donovan more than other teams value Donovan. And at that point, you probably should extend him, right? If that's somewhere in the 5 to 6 year range, I wouldn't go any more than 5 or 6, because then you're really getting into those mid to upper 30s. But if you can get him, less or around $20 million a year, you obviously don't want to go into that 25 range. But if he's a $15 to $18 million player, I think you look at that extension for sure.
Yeah, I hope they look at it, because I think there's value to having a guy that's a career Cardinal. It'd be awesome to have. I mean, it'd be awesome to have Brendan Donovan stay in a Cardinals uniform his whole life, his whole career. Have him back at Busch afterwards. It's the type of player that they need. It's the type of player that this fan base needs, I think, to connect to too. As a Cardinals fan, it's felt really transient the last few years. Especially now, like Nolan Arenado is no longer on the team. What holdovers are there from the last winning team the Cardinals had, except for Donovan? I know Newbar played on that team, but it's not the same. He hasn't been the same type of regular productive player Donovan has. He's your only all-star from last season. Yeah, I think it's the type of thing the front office should throw the fans a bone, sign this guy, lock him up, have him play here. But yeah, I'm not sure. I still lean towards Donovan's going to be traded, but it's not like the 95 to 99% outcome it felt like a few months ago. I don't know if you guys feel that way, where at least it's not like 95% this offseason. So it could be a deadline trade. But I don't have a desire to wait till the deadline. I think at that point you're probably stripping value from Donovan for what, still, if you're waiting till the deadline, you're not negotiating an extension. I don't know. I hope there's a resolution to this before the season starts. Where are you on that? Do you guys think that there's something done, or is the deadline the most likely outcome, Kareem?
I have a question for you guys. Do you think there's any way that Brendan Donovan gets traded during spring training, or if he's with the team, you think it's set in stone that he'll be on the roster opening day?
I think that's kind of a weird thing to do, because I don't know, when we talked to Brendan on Dealing the Cards, about a month ago, we did talk about organizations try to be courteous to players like that. And it's listen, you want to know where you're going. Obviously, you don't have control or certainty over your future as a player under, arbitration or pre-arbitration team control, but you don't want to just be moving a guy with no warning. So I don't know. Maybe they do. I think that's a reason spring training trades are really rare, but also organizations have to make the decision that's best for them. And if the Giants feel like they don't have anything solved, they don't like their options, they're sitting there and they get desperate all of a sudden, maybe that's a move that happens. I don't know. I think I'm leaning towards probably if he's here, he's on the team, but I'd love to hear what you think, Farmhands.
If he makes it to spring training, I think he's probably a Cardinal, to be honest with you. I think, that's a guy you really respect, and putting him in that situation, it isn't the most respectful thing, at least in my opinion, because it's he's here, to send him over to somewhere that he has to go travel all the way to Arizona or something. It just doesn't feel like a very Cardinals courteous thing to do. So I think if he's here at spring training, he's here, and that's it, till the deadline.
I hope that's the case.
Yeah.
They're running out of time. Spring training
I know
is less than a month away now. So
yeah, it's crazy.
If they're not going to make a trade, during spring training, I mean, they've got less than a month to make a trade.
Got 2 weeks.
Well, there've been moments where it feels like it's heating up, and it's we get some tidbit from a big reporter, whether it's Katie Wu or somebody else, and it's okay, Donovan's probably going to be traded in the next 48 to 72 hours is how it feels, and then it never comes to fruition, and it's we're here, we're waiting. And I think if the Cardinals get the right value back for Brendan Donovan, if one of these teams budges, but it's crazy to me that Seattle and San Francisco aren't budging, because everything has gone the Cardinals' way on this market-wise. Ketel Marte not being traded, right? The Pirates jumping into the market early and getting Lau from the Rays. When you see stuff like that happen, you think, okay, the teams that needed second baseman, the teams that needed to augment their lineups, especially even the Red Sox now being linked to Donovan, where it's yeah, obviously they're linked to everything that happens in St. Louis now for whatever reason. But them wanting to augment their lineup, upgrade their position player core and having a hole on the right side of their infield. It's man, you think all these things would lead to the Cardinals being able to extract maximum value for Brendan Donovan, but Obviously, DePoto's not budging. Obviously, Posey and the Giants aren't budging as of right now. So I don't know. Is there anything you guys want to add to that? Like, how do you think this concludes? When everything has gone their way, why are we still sitting here with no deal done?
I think it just comes down to what teams what teams are offering for Donovan, and the Cardinals not believing that's enough to get a deal done, right? Without being in the front office and seeing the offers, it's tough for us to really say whether they're making the right decision or not. But I just have a hard time, since the start of the offseason, I've just had a hard time believing that teams aren't giving enough to get a deal done. But it's hard to say for sure unless you're in the front office, right? So I hope they're able to get a trade done. I hope there's more clarity on the situation. But regardless of what happens, I'm still, optimistic for this season. I'm still optimistic about this, the farm system that the Cardinals are building. Yeah. And I just hope if they don't trade Brendan Donovan, whether it's now or the deadline, they do extend him for 4 or 5 more years, or even 3 years. Just I'd be down for an extension, but I just don't want to see the Cardinals not move him and then get to a point where he's just leaving in free agency and you're not getting anything back in return for him. Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping for. The Cardinals finding a way to either get a trade done or extending him. And if one of those two things doesn't happen, I'll be disappointed.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. How do you feel about the end of this? Like, farmhands, do you think, I don't know, where are you on this?
The Cardinals obviously hold all the leverage in the Donovan negotiations. I think that might be another big reason this is taking longer is the Cardinals are, the longer you wait, the more desperate teams get. At least that's the sense of it, right? But obviously that can backfire, and if a team pivots and goes and gets a Harrison Bader or any other position they need to fill instead, and then you lose that leverage. So it's a fine line, and the Cardinals have seemed to walk it really well so far, but we'll see how long that lasts, and if Bloom outweights the deals, or if it plays perfectly for him and he gets a big haul, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I think one more wrinkle to this is Boston fans criticized Bloom for being too patient, too careful, too cautious, and it's like, man, maybe are we seeing a bit of that? So it'll be interesting to follow the rest of this. Of course, other than Donovan, there are still some assets on the team. A Jojo Romero trade is still possible, but that market kind of got moving, and I don't think it'll happen at this point. Maybe he's packaged with Donovan in a move to Seattle or something. But I don't know. I think the Cardinals might have missed the boat on that. I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think you're getting a ton back for Romero. And honestly, you've lost so many arms from your very solid bullpen that it might be nice to have a bit of stability back there. We'll see. Do you guys think that was the right move? Like, Kareem, what do you think about kind of the way the JoJo market didn't really develop as some of this other stuff got going in December when the reliever market started moving?
I think JoJo probably will have around the same, if not more value at the deadline.
I agree.
Is my guess. Yeah. And I'm not, I wouldn't say that I'm disappointed that the Cardinals haven't moved him to this point, and it doesn't seem like they're going to move him. But just fingers crossed JoJo's having a good year and he's healthy and they can get some assets back for him at the deadline. Did you have anything you thought about JoJo Romero, farmhands? Any comments?
Not really. I think that the deadline's probably where you're going to get the most value, just how the reliever market works out. I mean, if you're not an elite reliever like Devin Williams, I mean, you're not going to get much during the offseason just because teams can sign relievers and, that's cheaper. You're not giving up talent. And, usually they're just as good as bets as, trading for a guy. So I think deadlines are always where you see the reliever trades more than during the season or during the offseason.
Yeah, without a doubt. Because that's when teams know they're going to be in postseason contention. And again, like you said, there's nobody to just sign. I think the big teams, especially now, the landscape of MLB where it's a lot of big market teams that are really good in contention at the moment, Like they'd rather spend $8 million than pay a guy $4 million, but give up, a legitimate prospect. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the real miss was not trading JoJo at the previous deadline. When the reliever market was really moving, and the Cardinals got great value back for a guy like Ryan Helsley. So I think that was the real miss. But
one last thing, the Cardinals are connected to a few, right-handed hitters, and it seems like the Cardinals want to add a right-handed bat, whether, it's Austin Hayes, Miguel Andujar is another guy that's been mentioned. Any guys that stand out to you that you'd like to see the Cardinals go after in terms of, a right-handed bat?
Yeah, me go first.
Yeah.
Miguel Andujar is the one that stands out to me the most. Back in December, I mentioned him as maybe a potential right-handed bat for the Cardinals. He plays third base, a little bit of outfield, can play some first base. And I think that's just really useful for the Cardinals because, if they want to get him at third base during, when lefties are on the mound, so they could kind of give Nolan Gorman a rest or whatever, Thomas DeJace would make sense, but Nolan Gorman, they can do that. If he wants to play outfield while Lars Nootbaar's hurt at the beginning of the season, he can do that. So he's kind of got that flexibility, even though he's not the best defender, and he mashes lefties. And I think that's something the Cardinals need.
I want to see the Cardinals go get Harrison Bader. I know he's the more expensive option, and I don't think it's likely, but I think it'd be so much fun. It doesn't make too much sense. I know, like you've already got your center fielder, but man, it'd be fun to see Harrison Bader back in St. Louis. I think it's the type of thing that they've got to throw the fans a bone here. It feels like the Cardinals have not considered the fans at all with some of these recent moves. And I totally get that. Like you're trying to rebuild, you don't want to have dead weight on your roster, but Bader is the type of guy that's going to put butts in seats. Like people will remember his tenure in St. Louis very fondly. He's totally a fan favorite, and he's a good player. He's a good player to watch. He's a lot of fun. He would add, he would add some depth to your lineup. He would make you a lot better. I don't think he repeats what he did last season. Like, I don't think he's a 4-win player every year. But he's electric. He's a highlight machine. And it just would feel nice to feel like, hey, Chaim Bloom got us something for Christmas when we enter next season. So that'd be a lot of fun. I don't think it's going to happen. But, it's possible. He's still not on the team yet. We're getting close to spring training. And that's a guy that really could carry some value at the trade deadline. And, while I think Victor Scott is an exciting player, I don't think Victor Scott has shown you that he is so good that you can't necessarily bring somebody else in to play that position and move on from. So Victor Scott's got to earn his playing time. I think it'd be nice to have some competition in spring training. He'll get some competition from Nathan Church. But yeah, I mean, if that's the reason they don't make a move like this, I don't think you can just throw Victor Scott's name on the roster in Sharpie at this point. He's got to find a way to produce even an 85 WRC plus, because the current level of offensive production is not going to get it done.
All right, I think we can just close out the episode there. But appreciate Farm Hands hopping on. I don't think there was a better guest to have for this show, talking about some of the international prospects that the Cardinals added. He had great work over on Twitter, and then he also wrote an article on cardinalsprospects.com covering some of the international signing, some of the players the Cardinals signed in the international signing period. So appreciate Farm Hands hopping on, and we'll have him more on this show and dealing the cards the whole page as well. So look out for that. It's going to be very exciting. But appreciate you guys tuning into this episode of Birds on the Farm. It should be an exciting, next couple of weeks heading into spring training, and can't wait for the season to start. This is going to be a very, very fun year for the Cardinals, especially the minor leagues. And we're going to be here with you covering the minor leagues all year. So appreciate the support always. And thank you guys for checking out this episode of Birds on the Farm.